Ethiopia is often celebrated as a 3,000-year-old never-colonized African civilization, unified, ancient, and exceptional. But this story is more myth than fact, crafted for political branding rather than historical accuracy. Tonight we'll peel back the layers and reveal the real messy history behind the myth. The famous origin story, that Ethiopia's royal line descends from King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, with Menelik Bus bringing the Ark of the Covenant home. It's a legend first written in the 14th century Kebra Nagast, a political document, not a history book. There's no evidence for any of it. The myth was invented to legitimize the Solomonic dynasty's rule. Even the name Ethiopia is Greek, not native, and originally referred to a much broader region. The 3,000-year myth is built on shaky ground, a story written 1,000 years after the fact, using a foreign name. This isn't just a harmless tale. It's a political tool that still shapes Ethiopia's identity today. Supporters of the myth point to the Aksumite Empire as Ethiopia's true beginning, but Aksum was its own civilization, centered in today's Tigray and Eritrea, with its own language and culture. Claiming Aksum as Ethiopia is like calling the Roman Empire Italy. It's a historical stretch. After Aksum's decline, centuries of fragmentation followed. The Solomonic dynasty later hijacked Aksum's legacy to legitimize their rule. This was a deliberate political move, erasing the region's complex multi-ethnic history in favor of a single, misleading narrative. The idea of an unbroken Ethiopian identity is a modern invention, not ancient fact. Ethiopia's pride in never being colonized centers on the 1896 Battle of Adwa. The Italians imposed colonial rule, laws, segregation, and exploitation. Ethiopia's liberation in 1941 came with crucial help from British and Allied forces, not through solo resistance. The myth of unbroken independence glosses over occupation and foreign intervention. The reality Ethiopia experienced colonization, and its freedom was restored by outside powers. The story is more complicated than the legend. While resisting Europeans in the north, Ethiopia was expanding south through conquest. Menelik II's campaigns in the late 1800s violently incorporated independent kingdoms like the Oromo, Sidama, and Walaita. This was internal colonization, land seized, people subjugated, and a rigid ethnic hierarchy imposed. Ethiopia's modern borders are the result of this imperial expansion, not ancient unity. Ignoring this history erases the experiences of millions who were conquered, not unified. Ethiopia's borders weren't set by destiny, they were negotiated with European colonial powers. Treaties with Britain, France, and Italy carved up the region, often splitting communities and ignoring local realities. Ethiopia survived as an empire by playing the colonial game, acting as both buffer and collaborator. The Ogaden region, for example, was handed to Ethiopia in colonial deals, fueling decades of conflict. Ethiopia's modern shape is a product of colonial border making, not ancient tradition. The idea that Ethiopia stands apart from Africa's colonial legacy is simply false. The myth of a timeless, unified Ethiopia was built to justify dominance, not to reflect reality. Real history is complex. Conquest, colonization, and foreign intervention all played a part. Facing this truth isn't about tearing down a nation, it's about building a more honest, inclusive one. Justice and unity require acknowledging the violence, occupation, and imposed borders of the past. True patriotism means confronting uncomfortable history, not clinging to myths.